Welcome back to the PSTA podcast. I am your host, Craig King, with another impactful episode with our favorite guest, our weekly guest. You know, Patrick Kelly just seems to keep getting an invite. I think it's because he spends so much time at that, the State House.
It is good to be wanted somewhere that's not the State House. Good to see you, Craig.
Good to see you as well, Patrick. So let's jump right into the legislature and whatever you want to share about the General Assembly in week 4 or 5.
This was week 5, so we are almost at the third of the way mark. There were some important education things this week. The Senate Education Committee advanced a bill that would remove Read to Succeed recertification requirements in the coursework that currently exist. That's exciting. That's a priority for PSTA, and we're glad to see it move to the Senate floor. Mm-hmm. But if you paid any attention in the news this week, all the conversation was around the House of Representatives and H. 3728, otherwise known as the Transparency and Integrity in Education Act.
So I know our listeners, especially the ones in Alaska, want to know some details in relation to that. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, and unfortunately, as the bill got amended on the floor of the House this week, our listeners in Alaska may be able to start suing South Carolina school districts. As the bill came to the floor, it really, from committee, it did 3 things. It prohibited instruction of certain topics, like one race is inherently superior to another. Those prohibitions have actually been in state law for the last 2 years in the state budget. With an exception, the bill does not prohibit instruction that causes discomfort, anguish, or psychological distress on account of race or sex. That's been in the state budget, but is not in this particular bill. Secondly, the bill protects instruction of certain things, fact-based instruction of controversial topics of history and current events, fact-based history of the oppression of certain groups on the basis of race, gender, national origin, a few other things on the list. So it had protections, and then it had a bunch of procedures in it. Procedures for how a family could file a complaint in the event that they had a concern that a prohibition in the law had been violated. Procedures for how districts could make curriculum transparent to families through websites and sending data home. Procedures for teachers to post syllabi, which teachers in South Carolina post syllabi, but it made it very clear what needed to be in it in order to be considered transparent by the General Assembly. So that's how the bill came to the floor. Unfortunately, it left the floor in a different form than it came in after 7 hours of debate.
So, Patrick, let's pretend I am a high school social studies teacher, and I'm concerned that I can't teach the facts that are listed in the standards. What would you say to that teacher?
I would say you absolutely still can teach the facts listed in the standards because that is protected in the bill. It explicitly protects instruction of the South Carolina standards. It explicitly protects instruction in fact-based history of controversial topics. But the bill as amended on the floor added a provision that would allow any parent or guardian to sue any school district in order to seek injunctive relief against something that they didn't like prior to going through any administrative process. So let me just put that in context for our listeners in Alaska. Since that amendment didn't specify that the lawsuit had to at least come from a parent of the school district, it means that a parent in Alaska could sue Charleston County School District to stop instruction of a topic that they don't like, and they could ask a judge to enjoin, to block that instruction before the complaint process that is very meticulously laid out in the bill that requires review by a local board and review by the State Board of Education if necessary, that provides due process to both the concerned parent and the individual that's alleged to have done something. This lawsuit can be launched before any of that happens. So you can teach the state standards, but if somebody doesn't like it, this lawsuit provision unfortunately opens the door pretty wide for frivolous lawsuits that could chill instruction and redirect and draw on district resources to try to respond to these frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah, and I think that's highly concerning for our teachers to know that. So what can they do?
Well, I think one thing they need to realize that it does not allow a lawsuit directly of the teacher. So that's something that I've seen on social media and heard talked about. The lawsuit is directed to the district. It's not for monetary damages, and that's still disruptive. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but it's not a lawsuit of a teacher seeking monetary damages. What a teacher can do is a teacher can, realize that it's not the law yet. This bill has passed the House. Mm-hmm. It now heads to the Senate. It is not clear at this time when or even if the South Carolina Senate will take up this legislation, but when and if the Senate does schedule a review of this bill, PSTA will let our members know, and we will provide talking points to our members to address the harmful floor amendments that were added on Wednesday that could both chill instruction of state standards and add additional unnecessary burden on the overworked teachers of South Carolina.
And if we extend it a little further, Patrick, I feel and I think it would affect recruitment of teachers.
Absolutely. There were members of the House on the floor on Wednesday night who went out of their way to say this isn't helping anything. Representative Russell Ott literally said that at some point, if the General Assembly keeps this up, they're not going to have to worry about telling teachers what to teach because there won't be anybody to teach anything. Yeah. Similarly, Representative Ray Felder, who was initially one of the sponsors of the bill, she took to the floor at the end of the debate and said she was disappointed in the floor amendments. And her direct quote was, "We have not done right by teachers." So this is a concerning development, but it's not done yet. It's still a long way from the governor's desk, and PSTA will keep our members informed on when and how to most effectively advocate, and making sure that advocacy is aligned with the facts and reality of what's in the bill, because misaligned advocacy based on things that are not factually correct can actually end up being counterproductive, and that's not what we want.
Right. And to Patrick's point, it's important that we have the facts and the things that are actually in the bill, the actual amendments that may have passed or did not pass, because when you're having those conversations with your elected officials, you want to make sure that you are using facts instead of things that you may have heard online. And so Patrick, as we wrap up this conversation, anything important, AKA an email that teachers may receive on Monday that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, while things weren't all great this week, there's some good news on the horizon for teachers in South Carolina to have an opportunity to directly interject their voice and expertise into the policymaking process. One critically important way is on February the 13th, the SC Teacher Research Initiative at the University of South Carolina will start emailing out to the work email accounts of teachers in South Carolina a working conditions survey. Now, this is about a 10 to 15-minute survey, so it's robust, but it is the first of its kind that will give policymakers in South Carolina-specific information that they can use to base policy decisions on. This is a chance to share your voice in a way that hasn't existed in the past, and PSTA strongly encourages our members to engage. Even though the email is coming to your email address, the research design of the survey ensures that your responses are confidential. Your principal, your district isn't going to know what you said. So you can take solace in that, just like the working condition or the climate survey, the state report card does every year. But it's important for teachers to take this opportunity.
So teachers, do me a big favor. Grab your absolute favorite snack. I know it changes probably week by week. Right now, mine is simply popcorn. Grab your favorite snack, your favorite soda or water, and take 10 to 15 minutes to fill out the survey. It'll make a world of difference to our policymakers and those that make influential decisions regarding public education. So, Patrick, as always, thank you for joining us. I have a feeling you'll be back next week and probably the week after that and probably all the way up until May.
13 to go.
So everybody, thank you for listening to another impactful episode of the PSTA podcast. This is Craig King, your host. I'll see you next time.